It feels like it's one of the biggest anxieties of our time, doesn't it? This fear that AI is coming for all our jobs. But is this fear actually new, or are we just the latest generation to panic about being replaced by some new machine? Let's really get into it and unpack the question that seems to be on everyone's mind.
So yeah, let's just start right there, the big one. Will artificial intelligence take your job? I mean, this isn't some sci-fi hypothetical anymore, is it? It's a very real concern for, well, pretty much everyone. We're talking truck drivers, cashiers, writers, even software developers. Seriously, this conversation is happening absolutely everywhere.
And hey, this isn't just some vague feeling people have. The numbers, well, they can be pretty staggering. Let me throw one at you. Back in 2013, a huge study from Oxford University came out, and it estimated that almost half, we're talking 47% of all jobs in the US were at a high risk of being automated. That study, wow, it really kicked this whole modern debate into overdrive.
Okay, but here's the twist, and it's a big one. While AI feels so incredibly new, this fear, it's anything but. This anxiety, this deep worry about being replaced by innovation, it's a story that has played out over and over and over again throughout history.
I mean, it's been incredibly consistent. Think about this. All the way back in the 1st century, the Roman Emperor Vespasian actually refused to use a new labor-saving machine because he said, "You must allow my poor holiers to earn their bread." Okay, now let's fast forward to the 16th century. Queen Elizabeth I, she denied a patent for a knitting machine for similar reasons. Then you get to the 19th century, and of course you have the Luddites, who famously went around smashing the mechanized looms that were taking their jobs. And it wasn't until the 1930s that the famous economist John Maynard Keynes finally gave this age-old fear a modern name: technological unemployment.
And that quote from Queen Elizabeth, it just perfectly captures the feeling, doesn't it? She wasn't against the invention itself, not really. She was worried about the social fallout, what it would do to her people, that it would just create a bunch of beggars by taking away their work. I mean, come on, that is the exact same debate we are having right now. Just replace knitting machine with artificial intelligence.
So this all leads to a really obvious question, right? If people have been panicking about this stuff for centuries, and so far they've always been wrong, what did they miss? Why didn't history just end with millions of unemployed weavers and hauliers?
And this brings us to the optimist's case. See, economists have this whole framework to explain why, historically, new technology hasn't actually led to a jobless future. And it all really centers on one key economic idea. Okay, so the core of their argument is something called the Luddite fallacy. It's basically this idea that there's a fixed amount of work to go around, like a big pie. And if a machine takes a slice, there's just less pie left for the rest of us. But economists say that's a fallacy because the economy isn't a static pie. It's dynamic. It's always changing. Technology doesn't just destroy jobs. It also triggers a whole bunch of powerful ripple effects that actually create new ones.
And these ripple effects, they have a name. They're called compensation effects. You can think of them as these sort of hidden economic forces that pop up to offset the jobs that were lost. It's almost like the economy's way of rebalancing itself after a big technological shock.
So how does this actually work in the real world? Okay, let's take a perfect example, the car. When automobiles came along and replaced the horse and buggy, yeah, a lot of people lost their jobs. Blacksmiths, stable hands, gone. That's the destructive part. But just look at what was created. First off, you needed people to actually build the cars on assembly lines, right? And mechanics to fix them, engineers to design them, but it gets bigger. As cars got cheaper, way more people bought them, and that demand explosion created entirely new industries that didn't exist before. Motels, gas stations, fast food drive-thrus, the entire national highway system. All that money people saved on horse-drawn transportation got spent somewhere else in the economy, creating jobs that nobody could have even dreamed of just a generation earlier. That right there is compensation effects in action. All right, so for 200 years, this pattern has pretty much held true. These compensation effects have always kicked in. The Luddite fallacy has always, well, been a fallacy. But the rise of artificial intelligence has made a lot of very smart people ask a very serious question. Is this time finally different?
And this, right here, is the absolute heart of the modern debate. In one corner, you've got the optimists. They're saying, hey, look at the last 200 years of history. We always adapt. They believe the same economic forces that worked for steam engines and tractors are going to work for AI. But in the other corner, you have people arguing that AI is a completely different beast. They point out that the speed of change is just off the charts, totally unprecedented. And this is the big one, for the very first time, machines aren't just replacing our muscle, they're starting to replace our minds.
Yeah, this is really the key distinction we need to grasp. All the previous machines, they replaced muscle power. The Industrial Revolution was all about automating physical jobs. But AI is starting to replace brain power. It's automating cognitive tasks, things that require thinking, like writing code, analyzing data, even solving complex problems. It's basically moving out of the factory and into the office, and that could be a total game changer.
And this deep uncertainty, you can see it clear as day in the forecasts from the experts. I mean, they are all over the map. You've got that Oxford study we mentioned way up at 47% of jobs at risk, but then another big study from the OECD put the number way, way lower at just 9%. Then PwC chimes in somewhere in the middle at 38%. So what's the takeaway? The honest truth is, nobody really knows for sure what the final score is going to be.
But there is one thing the data does seem to suggest pretty clearly. This risk is not going to be shared equally, not by a long shot. A report from 2016 found something pretty shocking. For jobs paying under $20 an hour, a staggering 83% were at risk. But as your pay goes up, that risk just plummets. This tells us that even if things work out okay in the long run with new jobs, the transition period could be incredibly painful, especially for lower-income workers.
So, okay. Given all this uncertainty and the very real potential for massive disruption, what do we do about it? The conversation is really shifting now. It's less about if this is going to happen and much more about how we get ready for it.
Well, there are a few major ideas floating around. The most traditional one, you've probably heard it, is more education and retraining, basically upskilling people for the new jobs of the future. Then there's a much more radical idea, universal basic income, or UBI, just giving everyone a regular income to act as a safety net. Another idea is to just shorten the work week and spread the available work among more people. But let's be real, none of these is some magic fix. Each one comes with its own huge set of challenges. And honestly, the stakes might be even higher than we think. A top AI scientist, Stuart Russell, he puts it very bluntly. He believes that in the long run, pretty much all of our current jobs will just go away. And he argues that this isn't a problem we can solve with a few small policy tweaks. We need to start thinking about some pretty radical changes to the very foundation of our economy.
And so, ultimately, this brings us right back to where we started. This fear of being replaced by technology, it's been with us for centuries. But this time, with AI, the sheer scale and the incredible speed just feel different. So maybe the real question isn't, will a robot take my job? Maybe the better question is this. As technology barrels forward and reshapes our world, what choices are we going to make to ensure the future it creates is a better one for everyone? A future of shared prosperity, not one of widespread hardship.